Today we finally get to talk about the defensive side of the football, talking about the most notable edge rusher moves in free agency so far, giving you guys my analysis and grades for all the moves we're talking about. But before we begin officially, all right, and welcome in everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you're listening to the Shumake Take. Welcome in, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. As I talked about in the intro, we're going to be talking about edge rushers and only edge rushers today. Unlike the offensive video, I'm going to be breaking down the defensive side of the ball into different positions. So today you're going to be listening to the edge rushers, and then you're going to listen to defensive tackles, corners, linebackers, safety. They're all going to be their own separate video. But before we begin talking about the edge rushers, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping because there's a couple things I want to talk about with you guys first as my elbow falls off the table like that. I thought that was interesting. I don't know how I did that, but that happened. Anyways, first things first, this is like my 8th time trying to record this. Not like the entire video, but the intro itself. I could not figure out for the life of me how I wanted to start this, and I kept on mumbling over my words, kept on stuttering. I even was like 7 minutes in. It's like the last take before this one, and I was like, okay, I forgot to talk about the analysis and grades part of the intro. So I was like, all right, you know what? It's time to restart. It's been a challenge. It's been a big challenge trying to record this episode. But either way, too, first things first, if you notice, I have no glasses on. I'm not wearing them. I don't really want to wear them right now, so we're good. I don't need them to see, so we're chilling. I can still see you guys perfectly fine. You guys can still see me perfectly fine. I can still see my camera. I can still see my script and my microphone, the table, everything around me in my room perfectly fine. Either way, also, the camera, as you can tell, is closer to me. I don't feel so far away from y'all anymore. I'm right here. I'm a little bit closer to you guys. It's a little bit more of a personal conversation. The Shumake Take is going to be a very experimental show here over the next couple of months because free agency, while the news is going to come and go, and we'll talk about it as the biggest news hits, and then we have the draft at the end of April, so we'll have that. We'll talk about that as well when the time comes. But I'm really going to spend this next few months during the offseason really experimenting with the Shumake Take and figuring out what type of camera angles, setups, and editing styles, different types of videos. I'm going to do a lot of different things with the Shumake Take, so be prepared. It's going to be a lot of, like I said, a lot of different things, especially the first one you're going to see is Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. Obviously, they got paid yesterday. You guys, I'm recording this on Monday night, or Tuesday night, so you guys are watching this Wednesday, so you guys are seeing, this happened yesterday for you guys. Anyways, so I'm going to make my own separate video talking about the two moves that were made with Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins getting paid, and it's going to be its entirely own separate, completely different video that I've ever made before. So I'm excited to make it. It's going to be interesting, so stay tuned for that. And also, before we begin, if you guys are new around here on the channel, or you like the content and you like the content, I don't know, either or, and I don't know, I can't say the right thing anymore. Anyways, we're going to continue though. If you guys enjoy the content or new around here on the channel, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. It only takes a couple of seconds. It's free, and also it helps the channel out tremendously as I continue to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people. God, this episode is a train wreck to start. But anyways, let's finally talk about the edge rushers, talking about the biggest move so far, probably the biggest move of free agency so far to this point. Myles Garrett, the edge rusher for the Cleveland Browns, signs a 4-year extension that includes $123 million guaranteed average per year salary of $40 million. At the time, it made him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Before, Ja'Marr Chase topped that, but now he is the second place guy. It ties Myles Garrett to the Browns for the many, many years to come, and also includes a no trade clause, which is kind of interesting. But overall, I'm going to give this move an A, a solid A. The only thing keeping it from an A+ is that I feel like the move could have been done sooner if it was to be made sooner, but also I feel like that also was going to be done anyways, and Myles Garrett would be more likely to be traded more than he was to get a contract earlier. So the thing is, the good thing about it, obviously, Myles Garrett's top 3 edge rusher, defensive player of the year, leader of the defense, right? He's one of the best defensive players in the entire NFL. There's no doubting that. There's no questioning that, right? So there's no qualms about that. The thing is, for me, I know that the entire situation for Myles Garrett in Cleveland, it's just weird because he wanted to leave, right? Wanted to go to a contender, and ultimately he wanted to compete for championships. And then he signs this massive contract with Cleveland, who currently holds the 2nd overall pick in the NFL draft. One of the farthest places you can be from becoming a championship contender, right? I mean, you're not going to be a super championship contender overnight. Like, if you're expecting like the Washington Commanders, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry. It will not. It simply will not. So now Myles Garrett is locked up to the Browns for the next, 5-6 years, right? I can't remember what the actual, how many years it was. I can't remember. I forgot to update my script. I'm sorry. But either way, this is, the other thing what's interesting is because the no trade clause. So Myles Garrett, like I also talked about how he wanted to go to a championship, and then he chooses to stay with the Browns and sign this mega extension with the no trade clause. Why? It really intrigues me as to why he chose to stay and what convinced Myles Garrett to stay with the team that has the number 2 overall pick. How could they convince him that the Cleveland Browns are going to turn their organization around and build a championship contender? I have no idea what they were able to sell. I don't know what they had to buy for Myles Garrett to stay. I don't know what they had to do to keep him in the building to make him believe that, okay, I'm playing for a potential contender in the next few years. I don't know. I don't know if he was smoking something. I don't know if the Browns were smoking something. I got no idea how that happened. But we woke up one day and bam, this contract went down. And, well, the big takeaway for me, for Myles Garrett, is you're staying on a bad football team. And also, this is a reminder to everybody that there's a price. Everybody's got a price. Whether it's, no matter what type of position you're in life, you could be doing some of the worst jobs in the world. Like, you could be like in the sewer cleaning manure. Like, you could be like a job like that, like in the mud, sticky, dirty, like some of the most undesirable situations to be in. But if it's for the right price, you will do just about anything. I will do just about anything for the right price. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Right? So it's a very interesting situation where Myles Garrett also said that it's about winning. It was never about the money. But then he signs this big contract, which is like, okay. And it makes me kind of question that. But at the same time, I can't read his mind, so I don't know his true motive. So if the Browns did sell him on the fact that they're going to try and build a winning championship contending team in Cleveland, and they manage to sell him on that, then by all means, they're the greatest con mans in the NFL. But that's only my opinion. But overall, the move, to conclude it and all of rambling aside, Myles Garrett staying with the Browns, it's an A move for the Browns. I would say maybe a C for the Myles Garrett more specifically. But at the same time, you keep your top 3 edge rusher in the NFL, defensive player of the year, and a cornerstone piece that you want to have to save the rest of his career in Cleveland. So overall, great move by the Browns for finally managing to get that deal done. Now we move on to the New England Patriots signing edge rusher Harold Landry to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal with $26 million fully guaranteed. This one's an easy for me B- because Harold Landry is a good player. You got him for a relatively decent price. He also adds to the defense, which one of the big issues on the Patriots defense was a lack of good edge rushers, and Harold Landry is a decent edge rusher. And also, he played for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee for a long time. He was actually one of the first draftees in Tennessee. Mike Vrabel got there in 2018. Harold Landry was drafted in 2018 in the 3rd round out of Boston College, so it's a good little reunite there. And the thing is, it's a B- because Harold Landry is just not as productive of a player as people think he is. You look at the 9 sacks and it's like, wow, that's cool and great. But also, you look at his pass rush efficiency, you look at his pressure rate, like the win rate, you look at some of the advanced metrics, and he was one of the worst starting edge rushers in the NFL last season. So that's not great. But also, for the New England Patriots, you get a guy that's played under Vrabel. So you get the guy that knows the standard, the culture of what Vrabel wants. And you also get a player that actually will improve your defense in year 1. So I can't really complain too much. And for the right price, fine, I'll take it. B- just because he's not as good of a player as people make him out to be, right? But at the same time, it does fill a need for the Patriots. And with the connection with Mike Vrabel and the price, like I mentioned, it all works out. He brings more good than bad. That's what I'm trying to say. He brings way more good than bad. So overall, that's a B-, solid move for the New England Patriots. Next up, the Cardinals. Arizona Cardinals, as I fix my little thing here, sign former Eagles edge rusher Josh Sweat to a 4-year deal worth $76.4 million, including $41 million guaranteed. This one I'm also giving a B-. It's a good deal. It's a good player. I just wonder if Josh Sweat is going to elevate and become that number 1 like bona fide, reliable edge rusher. The thing is, like, the Philly defense had so many great pieces around it. It's hard to gauge if Josh Sweat was one of those true difference makers or if he was a product of his environment. And I'm not going to be here and tell you that, oh, Josh Sweat was a player of environment or he wasn't. I just wonder. I don't try to like fit players into certain narratives unless it's absolutely true, right? And also, like, I'm going to keep an open mind. Like, I'm open to see what Josh Sweat does. And also, that is an improvement to a defense that needed edge rusher help for the Arizona Cardinals, right? They had Demarcus Robinson. Oh my God, what was his name? Oh my God, the guy out of Mizzou. Okay, so I just did a jump cut. I'm sorry. That was going to take way too long, but it's Darius Robinson, the edge rusher out of Missouri. He got hurt and was done for the year early. And so you get a first round pick there and you add a Super Bowl champion, solid edge rusher in Josh Sweat. So I think it's a decent move. I think it's a good price. I just wonder, like I said, if he is the product of his environment or if he's a true difference maker. Like I mentioned, the Eagles defense has a lot of playmakers. Obviously, in the defensive line, there was Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, right? You also had Nakobe Dean, right? Nakobe Dean is the linebacker, and then Nolan Smith is the edge rusher. You had Nolan Smith, right? And then there's Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean at linebacker, all the corners that they had, right? So it's very interesting, but I'm going to keep an open mind, and I like the idea because it fills a need for the Arizona Cardinals for a decent price. So overall, B-, good move there as well. Now we move on to a couple one Charger that remains for the Chargers. Then we'll talk about a former Charger. But first off, re-signing with the Chargers, Khalil Mack stays with the team on a 1-year, $18 million fully guaranteed deal. This one I'm giving an A. He's still a really good player, veteran, but still a really good player. Great locker room guy, team captain, right? And for a team that's still trying to build, I think this is a really good move and it's worth keeping him around. Because the Chargers, like I've mentioned before, time and time again, this was supposed to be a year in the oven, baking in the oven type of year for the Chargers, but they went above that and were able to make the playoffs and finish second in their division behind Kansas City. So they're a little bit ahead of where I had them going, but that's not to say that the Chargers still have work to do, right? And keeping Khalil Mack around as they continue to build this defense up, I think is really good because the defense was really good last year, was a big difference compared to what Brandon Staley was giving this group and what the product on the field was. And so keeping one of those cornerstones around for one more year, I think is perfect because now you got to talk about building up this offense, improving the depth of this defense. The Chargers are a team I'm expecting to make the playoffs again next year and potentially win a playoff game. So again, keeping a guy like Khalil Mack around is very important. I think he's still a really good player and still has a lot to give on the field, also in the locker room, like I mentioned. So it's a good move for the Chargers, and that's why it gets an A from me. Moving on to the former Charger, Joey Bosa, signing a 1-year, $12.6 million deal with $12 million of that guaranteed, so almost fully guaranteed, with a max value of $15.6 million. So this one, I'm going to give a B+. This comes after the Bills had cut Von Miller, who really hadn't done all that much for the Buffalo Bills. So the Chargers, or for the Bills, now you get Joey Bosa in there. And Joey Bosa, that's not a guy that I'm expecting to start right away. It feels more like or maybe not start right away. What am I talking about? It's not a rookie. I don't think he's going to be like a full-fledged starter. He might, right? But I feel like the move from Miller to Bosa feels like a lateral move. You're just going from veteran edge rusher to veteran edge rusher. Von Miller's a future Hall of Famer. Joey Bosa, I don't know if he's a future Hall of Famer yet, but also like he's that same type of caliber of player that Von Miller is right now. And in the pass rush rotation, I think he's still going to provide a lot of pressure. He's going to provide immediate impact. The only thing is he's got to stay healthy. Joey Bosa's dealt with injury issues his entire career to this point, so I believe they're going to try and use him in a more defined role, kind of like what he was in these last couple of years with the Chargers, where he was mostly just used in pass rushing situations on third down, right, or first and long, where, okay, he can pin his ears back and go get after the quarterback. I don't know if he's that consistent 3-down player anymore, but he still provides a lot of value as a pass rusher. So getting one that will probably give you more than Von Miller, okay, I can get it. I like the move. And also they extended Greg Rousseau, who we're going to talk about here in a moment. But overall, solid move for the Buffalo Bills. B+ for me. Now we move on to Greg Rousseau, who signed a 4-year, $80 million extension that includes $54 million guaranteed. This move is a B. Greg Rousseau, former first-round pick, very solid player. He hasn't become that elite top-tier guy that some people thought he could be when he was coming out of college, but at the same time, he is still an extremely valuable piece of this defense. He is a really good run defender. He's a good pass rusher. That's a guy that you want to keep around for a really long time because while, like I said, he's not the top-tier guy that a lot of people hoped that he would be, he has still become a very, very good player. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Greg Rousseau when I'm saying that. Like, he is a very good football player, still young, right, as well. So keeping him around is very important for a Bills defense that, quite frankly, had some struggles last year at the end of the year. And keeping a guy like Greg Rousseau around in that pass rush, which they're really trying to bolster. They signed Joey Bosa. They've added a defensive tackle, Larry Ogunjobi, right? So they're really trying to bolster this defensive line, which is their strong in the front seven, which is their strong suit of that side of the deep or on that part of the defense. I already told you guys this episode is becoming a train wreck. I'm not talking right. I don't know why. It's just my brain is not braining right now. No idea why. But again, absolutely necessary. I love the move of keeping him there, but because of the high-end talent, that's why it stays as a B. And I'll bump it up to B+. I'll bump it up to B+, because if Joey Bosa is a B+, Greg Rousseau has to be a B+, A- at best, but I'll stick with B+. I'm excited to see what he can do in 2025 with Joey Bosa and the rest of that edge group rotating around and getting after the quarterback. But this is a move the Bills absolutely needed to make, and a good one at that. Next up, the Bears signed former Colts edge rusher Dayo Odeyingbo. I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Dayo. I am so sorry. I pride myself in trying to pronounce last names, but this one I just could not figure out for the life of me. But Dayo agreed to a 3-year, $48 million contract with $32 million fully guaranteed. This one I am going to give, unfortunately, a C, because while he is still young, right? Pretty talented as well. I'm not going to take that away from him. Young and talented is that's a good fit you want to be in. But also, he hasn't been very productive. You look at some of his advanced metrics, they're a little better, right? And you can tell that you watch the tape that his tape is better than what the production would show. So if you look at it from that aspect, okay, that's a solid move. And then you also add on that, coincidentally enough, his pro comp coming out of college was Montez Sweat. Guess who's on the Bears? Montez Sweat. Whoop-de-doo. So now you get two players that play similar to each other on opposite sides. And so now you can probably get some continuity at that edge rusher position, which the Bears have not had in years. They haven't had that forever. Montez Sweat has been like the most consistent edge rusher they've had in a while. And so you get Dayo paired up next to him, two guys that play similarly. And there you go. Now you have an edge rusher group. Now with a bolstered defensive tackle group. So now you have a group that I can say group so many times. I don't know how many times I'm going to say group to this point. Group. Either way, now you have some consistency at the edge spot for the next few years. And Dayo, like I mentioned, young, talented. So there's a lot of time for him to still continue to develop and get better. So there's upside, which I can appreciate and I can understand. For a young coach and still building football team, you want a guy that can really be there for a while, and Dayo has the potential to be a guy that can be there for a while. Next up, a veteran signing. The Buccaneers signing Haason Reddick to a 1-year, $14 million deal. This move is a solid B. He was a really good player not too long ago. If you remember, he was with the Panthers, who was really good. He was with the Cardinals for a while. Then he went to the Eagles and continued being really good there. And then he gets traded to the New York Jets. And then he wants a new contract. The Jets don't give it to him. He holds out and out and out and out to the point where he comes back like mid-season, give or take. I can't remember when, but definitely did not play the same, which that'll happen if you hold out and you have a lot of rust to shake off. And so now his value kind of tanked. But I think he can still be a really, really good productive edge rusher in the NFL. Like, if you think about 2023, he was one of the top 10 edge rushers in the NFL. He was top 10 2 years ago. So obviously now he has an offseason to get, to really acclimate himself, right? Continue to shed some of that rust off. And also, I really like the idea of Haason Reddick in a Todd Bowles defensive scheme, a scheme that really loves to send a bunch of different types of blitzes, that loves to get pressure. You add him to an edge rush rotation of a guy like Kalijah Kancey, who's maybe more of a defensive end, but a guy like Yaya Diaby. No, Kalijah Kancey's a defensive tackle. What am I talking about? My bad. You add, Yaya Diaby in that group, right, with Haason Reddick. There's a couple other guys in there. Then you also have Chris Braswell, the former second-round pick out of Alabama, who people are expecting to take a step forward this year, right? So now you have an edge rush rotation, which now is a lot better than it was last year with Haason Reddick. I think it's a serious upgrade, and for 1 year, $14 million, it's kind of a prove it. Let's see what you got. See if you're still that edge rusher. And if you are, hey, we'll keep you around for a while. And if not, well, go find another team and have fun. So it's a very low risk, mid to high reward type of player in Haason Reddick. So it's a very safe move. And like I mentioned with the scheme fit, I really like him going into a Todd Bowles defense where he's really, I think, going to be utilized a lot better than he was with the New York Jets. And in a defensive scheme that's really going to heavily rely on pressure, which Haason Reddick is, as a talent, is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL still, I believe. And we will see what that looks like in 2025. Next up, as I fix my hair, sorry, the Falcons sign Leonard Floyd, the veteran edge rusher, to a 1 year, $10 million deal. This one's a B. And fun fact, if you guys remember, Leonard Floyd was a former Georgia Bulldog, so that's a kind of a reunite there, going back to his hometown, where he also grew up in Chauncey, Georgia, not too far from Atlanta. So goes back home, right, back closer to his alma mater. Great stuff, cool little reunion there. But for the player, while he's an older player, he is still very productive. He still had 8+ sacks over the past 5-6 years. Right? Like the guy really has not slowed down all that much at all. And Leonard Floyd, I think he was the team leader in sacks for the 49ers last year. Maybe the second place right behind Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa finished with 7.5, I think. Or no, maybe I might be mistaking him with Aiden Hutchinson, probably. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe Leonard Floyd, I know he was definitely first or second on the team in sacks for the 49ers last year. Only spent 1 year there, of course. But Leonard Floyd's kind of bounced around. But everywhere he's been productive. He's like Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks immediately comes to mind, where he bounced around from team to team to team, but consistently had 1,000 yards. Started with the Saints, right? And then he went to, the New England Patriots for a year. And then he went to, where else did he go? Oh, he went to the Rams. And then he went to the Texans? He went to the Texans. I think he had 1,000 yards there, and then went to the Cowboys, where he's kind of, slowed down, right? But Leonard Floyd is that same type of player where he's bounced around the league year to year, but continues to have very solid production, where that's a very good move, low risk, mid to high reward signing for the Falcons, who had one of the worst edge groups in the NFL last year and was one of the worst teams at getting after the quarterback. So you get a guy who's a veteran, who has experience, he's reliable, durable, and productive. That's a very solid move for the Atlanta Falcons. I still think you got to go edge rusher in the first round. This doesn't eliminate that need, but I like the idea of bringing in a guy like Leonard Floyd to give you production, and then you draft a guy in the first round who can learn from that veteran, learn how to be a pro, develop better, and then after Leonard Floyd goes after the year, okay, now you have a bona fide edge rusher one with your first round pick, whoever that might be, and then you fill that void in with somebody else. Or if you like him enough and he still gives you a lot of juice, maybe you bring him back for another year, which would be really cool to see. But overall, I really like the signing of Leonard Floyd to the Atlanta Falcons. It helps fill a need and adds a very reliable, productive player, which is what the Falcons very desperately need. Next up, this one's a very interesting one. The Saints re-signed Chase Young to a 3-year, $51 million deal that has a max value of $57 million. This one's a C+. I talked about Chase Young a little bit in the Saints predictions versus reality video, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, I would go ahead and check that out. It's one of the worst videos I think I've ever made. I don't know why. I'll have to check that out. But then again, that was a very interesting video to make anyways, because talking about the Saints defense, one of the biggest issues was their run defense, and that's because all their defensive linemen are more pure pass rushers compared to being actual run stuffers, right? So they really need help at run defense, and they probably could have found a similar value in Chase Young, cheaper probably, right? Like, I don't think you needed to re-sign Chase Young to that type of money. I'm not going to like say like Chase Young is like, oh yeah, this is a terrible move, right? It's not terrible. Like, Chase Young's still a good player. It's just, I feel like you could have done, like, you could have gone cheaper, right? And gotten similar production. But at the same time, they really like Chase Young, right? All the reports that were coming in when he first got to New Orleans, and even now, they liked him. They like him in the locker room. So a guy you want to keep around who's still in his early 20s, mid-20s, fine. I like it. There's still athletic upside there as well. And so maybe you pair him up with Brandon Staley, the new defensive coordinator. Okay, now we could be seeing something where Chase Young could become a better pass rusher. But right now, I feel like they could have gone a different direction, could have gone cheaper and gotten similar production. But like I said, the youngness and the youth and the athletic upside is enough to keep him around and keep continuity as this team continues to do whatever they're trying to do. Whether they're trying to remain competitive or rebuild, I have no idea what the Saints are doing anymore. So at least they keep a good player around for the next few years. I like it. So it is a C+, just because of what they could have done. But I can get behind it. I can understand it. Also, I forgot to mention, Cam Jordan also returned on a 1-year deal. I'm not going to give it a grade because he was either going to retire or stay with the Saints. So keeping him around, good, fine, dandy. He's still a good player, still a productive player. So I'm not going to grade it, but still a good move for the New Orleans Saints. So I wanted to mention that for just a quick second. Now we move on to the last move on the list, where the Seahawks sign Demarcus Lawrence, who was cut by the Dallas Cowboys, signing a 3-year deal worth, I don't know what the full deal is. You might see it on screen here. It might not be. I can't remember what the graphic shows, but the deal is up to $42 million, $18 million guaranteed. This one's a B- for me. He brings experience to a mostly young defensive line, especially at the edge group, which I can like. He's still a productive player, right? So while he's not the player he used to be, I can't complain about this move too much. Like I said, he's still a good player and brings solid experience to a young defensive line. So I can appreciate that. The thing is, Demarcus Lawrence definitely has not been his best self in these past couple of years, but I feel like in a more of a rotational type of role, okay, maybe we'll get more production out of him, because I feel like the NFL now is shifting to more, yeah, you have your bona fide edges, but definitely, like, we're learning now that you don't have to have, like, that elite edge rusher. You definitely should, right? But definitely, if you have, like, a bunch of B-tier edge rushers and rotate them around and keep them fresh during the course of a game, kind of like with what the Eagles did with their defensive tackle group, okay, like, you can still get solid edge production out of a committee of rushers without having to rely on one or two guys. So if you take that into account for, like, a potential rotation, right, and also to improve the pass rush in Mike McDonald's defense, I really like the move. And there was a lot of drama between him and then Micah Parsons, apparently. He in a conference, or like a little interview that Demarcus Lawrence had when he first got to Seattle, was like, "Oh, I don't want. This is why I came here, because the Dallas Cowboys aren't going anywhere." Right? He was talking, he was kind of throwing shade at his former team, and then Micah Parsons responded to it on Twitter and then talked about how, like, okay, that's why, like, you don't do anything anymore, like, pretty much calling him out. And then Demarcus Lawrence clapped back at him. So that was an interesting little beef between two former teammates, which I don't fully understand why, because, I mean, Demarcus Lawrence has been with the Cowboys forever. So, I mean, I get it. The Cowboys aren't really going anywhere, so I would get leaving. But, throwing the shade at your former team, I don't really get that. But, I mean, if that's your prerogative, that's your prerogative, right? And then Micah Parsons calling him out, it's interesting. It's a very interesting situation. But back to the point in Seattle, I think Seattle's getting a good player. I think they're getting a player that's going to give them production, that's going to give them value and experience, like I mentioned with a bunch of these other free agent edge rusher moves, which is going to be a common theme, especially with some of these other position groups like linebacker, even safety. There's going to be a lot of experience and also youth and athletic upside. There's going to be a lot of narratives that I talk about throughout the defensive side of the football in free agency. And Demarcus Lawrence fits in that bill. I like the move. I like what he could give to the Seahawks defensive line. And overall, I think this makes this defense better. So I cannot complain. That's why I give it a B-. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe button. It's free, only takes a couple of seconds, and it helps the channel out tremendously as I continue to grow and spread my football passion to more and more people. Also, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, whether you're a fan of these teams that I mentioned signed these players, or if you're a fan of the team of the player that left. So like if you're a Cowboys fan and saw Demarcus Lawrence leave, or you're a fan of the Eagles and saw Josh Sweat leave, right? Or if you're a Titans fan and saw Harold Landry leave, in my opinion, I don't know if I really like the move all too much as a Titans fan, but I can get it. I understand it to a certain extent. So let me know all your thoughts there in the comment section. Also, lastly, make sure you guys share the video, whether it's by word of mouth or social media, getting everybody locked in and locked on to the Shumake Take podcast, coming out with great content for you guys every single week, right? So make sure you guys do all of that. It would help me out a lot. I would greatly appreciate it. But that is going to do it for me today, guys. Stay tuned for defensive tackles and the rest of the position groups that'll be coming out throughout the week. And also stay tuned for my Jamar Chase and T. Higgins video that'll be coming out very, very soon. But until then, I will see you all next time.